In other words, the deal you negotiate is the deal you negotiate, and that's the ball. Do you understand all that, sir?
New footage just dropped, and it might flip the entire YNW Melly case on its head. Melly's day one, his co-defendant, YNW Bortlen, just got caught on camera spilling the whole playbook. And doing it with a smile, fans are calling it straight-up snitching. The streets are buzzing, the internet's on fire. So the question is, did Bortlen really fold on Melly to save himself? Let's break it down. This wasn't just some boring courtroom moment. What went down in Broward County looked like betrayal served cold. Remember, Bortlen was facing the rest of his natural life behind bars. Maybe even the death penalty. We're talking about charges that separate the real from the fake no in between, but here's where it gets crazy. Bortlen, real name Cortland Henry, was accused of helping Melly kill two of their own crew members, Sack Chaser and Juvie. This wasn't ops. This wasn't random dudes. These were family. And when the judge read off those charges, it was looking like game over for both Melly and Bortlen. Then suddenly Bortlen walks out with just 10 years. 10 years? Something's not adding up, and the streets definitely noticed.
All right, Mr. Henry, I'm not quite sure how your lawyers managed to do this, but I wish you good luck, sir.
You hear that? Even the judge was low-key shocked. When a judge who's seen it all sits back like, I don't know how you pulled this off. You already know some serious wheeling and dealing went down behind closed doors. But let's keep it 100. This isn't just about paperwork and plea deals. In the culture, there are certain codes you never break. You don't touch kids, you don't mess with a man's money, and you never cooperate with the feds. That rule has been carved in stone since day one. But here we got Bortlen agreeing to a proffer session, which is just lawyer talk for I'm about to tell y'all everything I know, and what he knows could be enough to put his former best friend on death row. The internet wasted no time, rat emojis everywhere, people calling him Chuck E. Cheese, doing everything but saying the R word out loud. But here's the craziest part. This deal wasn't normal. This move feels like it was years in the making. Prosecutors first offered him 16 years, just a week earlier. Then out of nowhere, they dropped it to 10 years. That's not just cutting slack. That's desperation. Think about it. 2 bodies on the line, and one of the alleged shooters gets a deal where he's basically home in 5 years. He's already served 6. That means Bortlen could be back on the block before he even turns 32. That's not justice, that's a business transaction. And what did the state get in return? Access to the only man who knows exactly what went down in that Jeep on October 26th, 2018, the one dude who can say if Melly really pulled that trigger or not. The vibe in that courtroom felt straight out of a movie, but this wasn't Netflix, this was real life. Only about 8 people showed up for Bortlen, including Melly's own mom and little brother. But you know who didn't show? Nobody from Sack Chasers or Juvie's families. And that silence spoke louder than anything.
100K Tracks wasn't there. No one from
he out on tour. He out on tour.
No one from Juvie and Sack Chasers side was there.
When your alleged victims' families don't even show up to see you take a plea deal, that's telling you they know you, about to say something that ain't going to sit right with them. The whole scene was surreal. You got this dude who was supposed to ride or die with his homie, and instead he's sitting there in that orange jumpsuit, about to potentially send his boy to the chair, and Melly's mama was right there watching it all go down. Now, Bortlen's lawyer, Fred Haddad, been out here trying to clean this up, talking about I don't represent snitches and all that. But let me tell y'all something. When you agree to sit down with prosecutors and tell them your side of the story about a double murder, that's exactly what you're doing.
His attorney said no, he will not testify. The only thing that's going to happen, based on what his attorney said, is he only got to answer a couple questions from the state.
A couple of questions about a double murder. Come on now, we ain't stupid. These prosecutors about to grill this man like he's at a barbecue, and every detail he gives them is another nail in Melly's coffin. The legal experts been breaking this down, left and right. But some of the realist analysis been coming from folks who understand both the streets and the system. Take this lawyer who's repped other major artists.
Ultimately, it is an individual's decision whether or not to become Chuck E. Cheese. And in this case, he has become a Chuck E. Cheese.
He ain't sugarcoating nothing. He's calling it what it is. Dude became a rat, point blank, period. But here's where it gets really deep. DJ Academics broke down the legal implications in a way that shows just how bad this is for Melly.
When pleading to an accessory to murder after the fact, you have to acknowledge that the murder happened and you assisted someone or in some way to cover the murder. Now, if Melly's statement is, how do we know there was a murder? And then secondly, how do we know who did the murder? Because they said it was a drive-by. How the hell would Bortlen help anybody but the person he knows?
See that? Right there is the real talk. If this was really some random drive-by like the defense been claiming, why would Bortlen need to help cover anything up? The only way that makes sense is if he was helping his boy Melly clean up a mess they made together. What really gets me about this whole situation is the timing. This man, Bortlen, held it down for almost 7 years. He's been locked up since 2018, maintaining his innocence, riding with his co-defendant through a whole trial, mistrial, and all the legal drama that came with it. When that trial date got real close and he was staring down the peril of potentially dying in prison, that loyalty started looking real expensive, and honestly, I can't even be mad at the man for choosing to save his own life. The streets got codes, but the streets don't visit you in prison for life.
When Fred had dad walked in today, he literally told the bailiff, "We're gonna fight it." So I thought when everybody was sitting there all day talking about, oh, he accepted a plea deal.
According to folks who were there, Bortlen's lawyer walked in that morning talking about we going to fight it. But by the end of the day, homie was signing papers and heading back to his cell with a completely different future ahead of him. What y'all gotta understand is that this case is about way more than just 2 dudes and some murder charges. This is about the collision between street culture and the legal system, between loyalty and survival, between keeping it 100 and keeping it breathing. In the hood, cooperation with law enforcement is the ultimate violation. It don't matter if you're facing life, death, or whatever. You're supposed to take that L like a soldier and keep your mouth shut. But when that judge is reading off charges, that could put you under the jail. That philosophical commitment to the code gets tested real quick. Let's break down how this whole situation might have been set up from the beginning. How Melly's own defense strategy might have pushed his boy toward cooperation, and why the hip-hop community saw this coming from miles away. Because sometimes the biggest betrayals don't happen in dark alleys. They happen in broad daylight, in courtrooms with judges and lawyers as witnesses. How Melly's lawyers created their own monster. If you thought part 1 was crazy, wait until you hear how YNW Melly's own defense team might have created the situation that's now threatening to send their client to death row. Because what happened in that 2023 trial wasn't just legal strategy, it was character assassination, friendship, destruction, and loyalty. Betrayal all rolled into one. Let me keep it 100 with y'all. Melly's lawyers did during his first trial was some next level foul stuff. Instead of maintaining that both defendants were innocent victims of a drive-by shooting, they straight up pointed fingers at Bortlen and called him the real killer. Think about that for a minute. Your best friend since day one, your rap partner, the dude, who was supposedly ride or die with you through everything. And his lawyers get up in court and basically say, nah, judge, my client didn't do it, his client did it. That's not legal strategy. That's straight betrayal with a law degree attached. David, a Howard Melly's lead attorney, wasn't subtle about it either. In his opening statement, he went at Bortlen like they had personal beef. Those were Bortlen's lies. He lies about where the incident occurred, he lies about how it occurred, and he lies about not having the phone. Damn, homie. That's your co-defendant you talking about, not some random street dude. But it gets worse. The defense didn't just accuse Bortlen of lying. They argued that he tested positive for gunshot residue while Melly didn't. And that surveillance footage showed Bortlen changing clothes at the hospital like he was trying to get rid of evidence. He painted this picture of Bortlen as the mastermind shooting, while Melly was just some innocent bystander. But here's where it gets really disrespectful. They brought in an alibi witness who claimed Melly wasn't even in the car when the shooting happened. Adrian A.D. Davis got up there and testified that Melly was sleeping at a house somewhere while all this was going down. So now you got Melly's team saying, not only did Bortlen do the shooting, but Melly wasn't even there to witness it. That means Bortlen allegedly killed 2 people by himself, then somehow convinced Melly to help him cover it up after the fact. That story is more twisted than a pretzel, but that's what they went with. The hip-hop community wasn't having none of this social media lit up with folks calling out the hypocrisy. One post that really summed it up said YNW Melly in his defense put all the blame on Bortlen in the first trial. So I mean, technically they both told another person dropped some real knowledge. Think of Melly lawyer's opening statements and how he tried to make YNW Bortlen the shooter. No way Portland don't turn state. The street's been knowing if you throw your co-defendant under the bus publicly, don't expect loyalty in return. That's basic street politics 101. What makes this situation even more foul is the context. Prosecutors had introduced a Snapchat message from Melly that seemed to show real love and loyalty for Bortlen. I keep Bortlen with, because at the end of the day, he did one of the realest boss in my life. This gangster saved my life. He coming everywhere with me, cause if them crackers come grab him, It's my fault you forgot Melly was out here talking about how Bortlen saved his life and how he felt responsible for protecting him. Then his lawyers get up in court and paint Bortlen as a cold-blooded killer who acted alone. The disrespect levels were off the charts. Criminal defense attorney Bradford Cohen, who's been around the block with high-profile rap cases, saw exactly what was happening.
He is going to give a statement. I don't know what that statement's going to be, but his attorney is an excellent attorney. He's one of my good friends and you know, really helped me out as a young attorney. Fred Haddad, a great guy. And he represented very, very few, if any, flippers in the past. That's why I was kind of surprised at first. But it turns out, the rumor on the street, YNW Bortlen is not going to be a flipper, but he will give a proffer.
But Nash also noticed something else, Melly's. Mama was in that courtroom when Bortlen took his plea, showing visible relief. Even family members understood this was a big moment. He was just like, I ain't got to if I don't have to. Think the state was more like, hey, we'll just, if he going to take the time, whatever, it's still a win for us. Like, we'll just take the time and then just, you know, try and focus on Melly. What Melly's legal team failed to understand is that this wasn't just about winning a case. This was about destroying relationships and burning bridges that couldn't be rebuilt. They thought they could sacrifice Bortlen to save Melly, but they didn't think about what happens when the person you just publicly called a murderer gets offered a way out the defense. Strategy was built on a fundamental misunderstanding. Of loyalty and respect, they assumed Bortlen would just take the disrespect and keep riding for Melly anyway, but respect is earned, and once you lose it, it's almost impossible to get back, DJ. Academics broke down the real significance of what Bortlen's plea means for Melly's case.
Yeah, no, nothing like his attorney said, it's two different cases, two different people. It's not going to, like, what he says is not going to have anything to do with Melly and not affect Melly at all. So he pretty much took the deal with that.
This is the key point that everybody needs to understand. By pleading guilty to accessory after the fact, Portland is confirming that murders happened inside that vehicle and that he helped cover them up. But if this was really a random drive-by like Melly's defense claim, why would Bortlen need to cover anything up? The only logical explanation is that he was helping someone he knew. Someone like Melly legal experts immediately understood the implications Bradford Cohen didn't hold back in his assessment.
And that's what happens a lot of times on these cases, and I was expecting it to happen a lot sooner than it did. He held out for quite some time, but long story short is it looks like he's going to flip, and it makes the case on YNW Melly, depending on what he says, I anticipate he'll say that YNW Melly is responsible.
Cohen's analysis cuts straight to the heart of it. Portland is about to tell prosecutors everything, and it's going to make Melly's case a lot more difficult to win. What y'all got to understand is that in hip-hop culture, respect is everything. You can be broke, you can be struggling, but if you got respect, you got something. Melly's defense team took Bortlen's respect and threw it in the trash. Publicly in front of the whole world. Disrespect someone like that, especially. Someone who was willing to ride for you. Don't be surprised when they stop riding. Loyalty is a two-way street, and Melly's team turned it into a one-way road to nowhere when the chickens come home to roost. That footage of YW Bortlen's plea hearing hit different than any regular court video within hours. It was everywhere, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and everybody had something to say about it, but the most viral clip wasn't even the plea itself. It was the judge's reaction. Judge sounding confused, almost impressed. Like, how the hell did you finesse your way out of a life sentence? The streets understood exactly what that meant. This man just pulled off one of the greatest legal chess moves in recent memory. Footage dropped, the internet detectives went to work. The comment sections were ruthless folks dropping rat emojis, Chuck E. Cheese memes, and calling Bortlen everything but his government name. But the real ones understood what was really happening. This was years of disrespect finally catching up with everybody involved.
And that's what happens a lot of times on these cases, and I was expecting it to happen a lot sooner than it did. He held out for quite some time, but long story short is it looks like he's going to flip, and it makes the case on YNW Melly, depending on what he says, I anticipate he'll say that YNW Melly is responsible.
This attorney kept it 100. He saw this coming. When you've been around the block long enough, you recognize the patterns. Loyalty only goes so far when life sentences are on the table. Now, Portland's lawyer, Fred Haddad, been out here doing damage control, talking about how his client ain't going to snitch and all that. But let me break down what a proffer session really is for folks who ain't never been in the system. When you agree to a proffer, you basically agreeing to sit down with prosecutors and tell them your side of everything. They can't use your exact words against you in court, but they can use the information to build their case, find new evidence, and understand what really happened.
I understand why they're saying what they're saying, but yes, they are inaccurate in part. Like, they're saying he has to do 10 years.
Like said Nash, who was actually in that courtroom, tried to explain that the cooperation might be limited. But let's be real, when prosecutors are willing to drop murder charges for information they expecting to get their money's worth, sometimes the realest. Analysis comes from people who understand both the streets and the system. Academics explained why Bortlen's plea deal is so devastating for Melly's defense. Like this video? Click on the card showing on your screen for more.